The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
you're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Thursday, June 16, 2016. Thank you so much for joining us. We just got through listening and hearing from Bernie Sanders in, well, we can't call it a concession speech because it wasn't a concession speech. It was more of what's next, the what's next speech. And so a lot of things to cover tonight, but we're going to talk about the speech first. 857-600-0518. I want to get your opinion. I want to get your thoughts. I got a chance to read a few comments on Twitter, and there's a broad range of feelings from euphoria all the way down to downright being pissed off that Bernie Sanders is deciding to help Hillary Clinton in the fight against Donald Trump. And so I definitely have my opinion. I have some very strong opinions about this, but I'll give you guys a chance to chime in. Just to recap some of the high points of the speech, he pointed out the 75 million phone calls that his volunteers made throughout this time, throughout the campaign. 75 million phone calls, 5 million doors knocked on. And when they started this revolution, they had no organization, no money, nothing but progressive ideas. And I mean, to be honest with you, that is an achievement. That is definitely something to worth bringing in a clap track. That is an achievement. And a lot of people didn't give Bernie Sanders any chance, right? It was really. They were laughed at when they started. Nobody, I did not believe in Bernie Sanders when he first got started, not because of Bernie Sanders, not because of any shortcomings of Bernie Sanders, but because of the inevitability factor that was being pushed on us about Hillary Clinton. And we'll discuss that momentarily as well. There's more to, there's so much more to what we already believed. We knew, we felt, we saw that the DNC was in the tank for Hillary Clinton all along. And of course, the emails that came out from Guccifer to this morning kind of confirms that. Not emails, but documents. They came out, confirmed that. But we'll talk about that momentarily. So in terms of Bernie Sanders, he really outlined some of the things that we've been talking about here at the Progressive Army for some time. And it's, to me, I think it's a missing piece in our American electorate. We wait. You know, a lot of people are vested in this election, and they'll walk away when this election is over and leave it to the powers that be to do everything else. And that's how we got into this situation in the first place. We got into this situation because we did not have a progressive movement on a national level that could demand something from parties, from both parties. And this is what I think Bernie Sanders is doing. He is essentially putting together a coalition, a team of a continuation of his campaign. See, to me, I think some people are going to view this in a very negative light, and if you do, that's your prerogative. But to me, I think this is a very unselfish act, because he is now transforming this movement to not being about him, to being, because this entire movement so far during this primary has been all of us who believe in progressivism throwing our support behind a single person. And now Bernie Sanders is moving that paradigm, or shifting that, to being about not throwing it behind one person, but throwing it behind local elections, throwing it behind school board elections, throwing it behind congressional elections, just every layer. And we've been talking about that, the need to get involved on every level. So this is a call to action. This is a call to action. This is a call to arms. This is a time for everyone who believes in this progressive movement to double down and drill down for the foreseeable future to keep progressive movements, this progressive movement, and progressive ideologies and ideas moving forward. And again, that's something worth an applause, in my opinion. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, this is Bryce. How's everything?
Everything's good, Bryce. What's on your mind, man? What did you think about the speech?
I thought it was a good speech. I thought it was a solid speech. I thought that he hit a lot of good points. I got the vibe that he deep down doesn't want to be teaming up with Clinton right now, but he doesn't want Trump to get in office like nobody else does, you could say. So I guess he's like, okay, if I can still get the movement, still get progressivism moving, still push toward 2020 and before then okay, I'll do what I got to do. And even though I know Clinton will be status quo, she's not going to be Trump, so I can get some things done, get some things pushed, and we'll see what happens. Because now they just did the filibuster thing about gun control, and then they're supposed to have a vote on some things that they would like to do, like ban assault weapons and all this stuff like that. So I think progressively, we can't just sit down and stop. You know, I think we can get a lot done the rest of the year and moving forward. And I mean, I think that the speech was good. I think that he's definitely is pushing forward and pushing the movement so that we can turn this country around, basically. Now, Elizabeth Warren, I think that she has she's still progressive, but I think she has some other agendas. I know that's what that pissed you off. That's why you're trying to hold back. I know. But the only thing I would say, I think also real fast, Young Turks was saying that if she can get in as vice president or do something or get involved and push and get some type of progressiveness into the office these next couple of years, then maybe I'll pull back a little bit. Maybe me and you both. I don't know. But until then, I guess we'll see what happens.
All right, man. Thanks for the call. 857-600-0518. I don't know. You already know I don't necessarily agree with you on I don't necessarily agree with you on Elizabeth Warren because it's about where you stand in the difficult moments that tells me who you really are, and whether or not she's going to fight, for instance, fight against the TPP. Bernie Sanders has made it clear he's going to fight against the TPP. And listen, think about it like this. What would be worse for Trump to get in and pass the TPP, Hillary Clinton to get in and pass the PPP, and Bernie Sanders just somewhere in the Senate without a movement behind him to fight against the TPP? I mean, people keep mentioning that Richard Nixon was on the surface, he was conservative, but in terms of what he actually implemented, the Environmental Protection Agency, just different pieces of legislation that were very progressive, right? He only enacted those because he felt the pressure of progressive movements. We have not had a seriously organized and strong progressive movement in a very long time. We've had candidates, we've had elected officials, but not a movement that has been sustained. And the only way we're going to stop something like the TPP is if we do it with the force of a movement of millions of people. And this is what Bernie Sanders is talking about, in my opinion. All right, let's take this caller. I definitely want to know what you guys think. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Yep, Scotty.
Scotty, what's going on, man? What did you think about the speech?
I thought it was good. Like I said before on your show, I'm not necessarily a Bernie supporter, but I appreciated his spot in history of what he's doing in terms of pushing progressive politics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw this. I was watching MSNBC. I don't know if they did this on CNN, but right after he basically said he was just going to the Democratic National Convention,
Mm-hmm.
they cut him off.
Mm.
They cut off his speech, and they started talking about how they would. It's like, come on, guys. Like, you could see the media bias there. And now I just saw a headline. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm seeing a story where they have DNC emails between, I think it was the media, like certain people in the media, they're talking about collusion for the Hillary campaign. And it's like you see the media bias and also some DNC bias. So, yeah.
Yep. I'm going to cover that in a few minutes. Thanks so much for the call, man. I appreciate it. 857-600-0518 to join the conversation. What did you think about the speech? What did you think about, what were your thoughts? You don't necessarily have to be a Bernie Sanders supporter to appreciate what we can do with a few million people organized. Let's say that only 1 million people out of this entire movement stay actively engaged and organized and mobilized. That's a force. That's a progressive army right there. Trademark. That's trademark of the Benjamin Dixon Show, progressivearmy.com. But that's a progressive army. And that's how we can get some things done. That's how we fight on all of these issues that are very near and dear to us. That's how we fight. And I guarantee you right now, as we speak, there are thought pieces being written, people tweeting, doing their tweet storm, all pissed off and angry because two groups of people are angry. Hillary Clinton supporters because Bernie Sanders didn't fold and didn't come into submission to Queen Slay Hillary, right? They're furious right now. And then you have the other side of those Bernie Sanders supporters who are no longer Bernie Sanders supporters because they can't believe that he caved to Hillary, right? So on the one extreme, you have those people who say, oh, he shouldn't have, he should cave to Hillary. He should bow before Queen Hillary. They're pissed. And then the other ones who said, oh, Bernie Sanders did cave to Hillary. So that's just the way of the world, though. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, man, this is Patrick Bone from Myanmar. Good to be with you as always.
Hey, man, always glad to have you. What's on your mind?
Just want to call and chime in because I already see Twitter is exploding. It's exactly what you're saying, the two camps. But at least the camp I'm concerned about is the camp that's already dumping Bernie. And I came across people of the same progressive, their tweets and so forth. And I just want to caution people to look at this in context and look at this in the context of history. I mean, what Bernie Sanders is doing right now, I mean, juxtapose that with Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter. I mean, what he's doing there right now is the complete opposite as far as creating a sustainable infrastructure.
Yep.
And I've already went to the website. It's already said what you can do. You can volunteer. You cannot provide technical support and so forth. And he's doing what we criticize these progressive groups are not doing.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can have it both ways by criticize Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter and even Howard Dean's movement got the name of the movement after he got the race. We legitimately criticize those folks for not creating an infrastructure, a national infrastructure, not engaging people on the local level. Then when that is done, we criticize that for selling out. And I think that's a very dangerous approach to take. And I just wanted to chime in on this view on YouTube.
Hey, thanks a lot for the call, Patrick. I tend to agree with you. 857-600-0518. If you want to join the conversation. Yeah, I think this is a brand new caller. Let's see. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, this is Wendy from Virginia, but technically in Brazil right now, so I'm calling you from Skype.
Oh,
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Do you have video?
Good. I don't have, I mean, I could, but I'm like in pajamas right now.
Okay,
kind of
no
late,
problem.
So I'd rather not.
What's
on your
mind?
But I did want to call and just say I appreciated the speech, and I also really appreciated the fact that he didn't endorse Hillary Clinton. I know a lot of people were assuming that he would endorse or have been reading what he said as an endorsement, but I'm happy that he didn't do that. But one thing that I felt was missing that I wish he had talked about more of is foreign policy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think right now with this question of the bill on the floor about Puerto Rico, and Senator Warren kind of being wishy-washy about this. And on top of that, people now gunning for, going to war with Syria, Hillary Clinton's potential going to war with Iran. I feel like we have so many foreign policy issues that Bernie Sanders has really been kind of reluctant to touch, even in these final hours when he really could push for some additional change on that front.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit concerned, and I hope that he and the committee and perhaps through Cornel West and others will really push for some platform changes in relation to foreign policy as well.
Yeah, you know what? And thanks so much for that call, Wendy. That's been something that a lot of people have pointed out throughout the campaign, his reluctance to address foreign policy issues. And I don't think he mentioned anything on the foreign policy front hardly at all, if anything at all. 857-600-0518. So far, most everyone who called in agrees and supports what Bernie Sanders' decision. For me, I like an end game. What's your end game, right? And for those who wanted Bernie Sanders to keep, anyway, I'm going to keep my opinion to myself for a second. So I want to get the rest of your opinion. I am going to cover the Guccifer, however you pronounce it. I'm going to cover his hack and his release. I have some screenshots showing the collusion, the alleged collusion, but we're pretty sure it's the collusion of the DNC with Hillary Clinton. We'll discuss that momentarily, but I still want to get your feedback. What are your thoughts? Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question? Caller, this is you. What's your name?
This is me. Is that me, Ben?
This is you. Who is this?
Oh, hi, I'm Virginia. I'm over in Washington State, V-Cubed, on the chat in YouTube.
Glad to have you. What do you think about Bernie Sanders' speech?
It's good to have you, too. And I thought it was pretty good. There are some things he didn't say that it was pretty politic of him not to say it. As we say in Puerto Rico, en pocas palabras, in other words, you need to get out there and replace the sold-out incumbent Democrats. He's not just talking about Republicans, okay? And he couldn't say it straight out because he's got to get these people on board, and he's still trying to get super delegates. But the one thing that nobody hardly ever talks about, everybody talks about voting, acting like, election day is all there is. I don't know about you, Ben, but I've been to these local damn meetings.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Our legislative district, the county. And what you see is when people challenge incumbents who have been sitting around taking up space and collecting donations, the rancor, the sabotage, the disapproval, the change in the way things are run to shut you down.
Oh, yeah.
The instant recruiting of new PCOs to vote, to outvote you. We have to be organized.
Yep.
And people need to get this. It takes 2 years to get to the place where you have somebody worth voting for. That is the reality. And I signed up already, okay? He has a little winner thing, and I signed up to volunteer for people who will run locally as Berniecrats to get rid of all our incumbents, all of whom gave their superdelegate votes to her, even though we had a 73% turnout for Bernie. Okay? That has to be done, and that takes 2 years. That takes sitting in some meeting you don't want to be in unless you bring your posse, because they will make you feel like you got poo on your shoes, okay?
I've been to those meetings. Yeah. I've been to some of those meetings, and I've seen how they react and how they respond and how they shut you down. But the other thing that I've seen, and I'm glad you brought that up, the other thing that I've seen is I've seen the wide open opportunity, because a lot of these meetings are empty. A lot of these caucuses are, and these precincts rather, are empty. Thanks so much for the call. I got to grab this next one. A lot of them are empty, and there's a lot of opportunity for people to have a bigger impact than they ever could imagine. And that's one of the things that stood out the most to me about his speech, was that he made a call to action for everyone to get involved. If you ever thought about running for office and you watched that speech, you should be organizing your campaign for 2018. Straight up and down, because he and this is how I don't. Anyway, again, I'm going to keep my opinion to myself. I'm going to let you guys talk, and then I'll give my opinion. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
David. It's David in New York. Hey, Ben.
Hey, David. How's it going, man? What's on your mind?
Things good. I just wanted to call in. I can't speak to you because you're not in our production channel. But I wanted to say one thing you said a couple minutes ago, what's our end game? And I don't think there should be an end game. I think that's the smart. I think that Bernie's coalesced such a large group all at one time, which is, I feel like, at least in the time that we're living in, it's hard to get everyone on the same page sometimes. And so I think that it seems like a bad idea for there to be an end game, for him to stop, for him to do like a Ted Kennedy, where he says, it's not going to die, but this is it. Back against Carter, what Ted did. Yeah. I think that anything like that just would feel wrong when it comes to Bernie for some reason. I can't exactly say what going forward looks like, except that what you've been saying for the past couple of nights, keeping it alive as a movement versus a campaign, and maybe doing a transition in some way, shape, or form is the only thing that really does feel natural in this scenario, in this case. Yeah,
I agree.
Just wanted to, give you that. And one other thing before I hang up, as far as foreign policy, he did actually, I know Cornel West is focusing on Israel and Palestine on the panel, just to throw that out there. But he didn't say it in the speech, and that was missed.
Yep. Thanks so much for the call, David. I logged into the production room. 857-600-0518 is the number to call. A lot of opinions. So far, I don't have anyone who thinks Bernie Sanders sold out. So I'm really interested in seeing someone who really feels like Bernie Sanders sold out, because technically you do realize he did not concede. The only thing he said he was going to do was he's going to help beat Donald Trump. That does translate into he's going to help Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump. But that does not mean he is folding. He's doing I think he's doing, again, hush, Ben, hush. I've got a whole lot to say, but I'm going to let you guys talk because I always do the talking. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, Ben. My name is Mary, and I think that Bernie did a good job. I'm a big supporter of Bernie, so I'm a fan of what he says. He stuck to his issues, and he did kind of stick to his narrative that he's always had, so that's expected. And, being a supporter, you can't be upset about that. But I think something that's interesting to note is by mentioning that he is potentially going to be working with Hillary Clinton, and I think that does throw kind of a wrench into the conversation that has been amongst the supporters, because Bernie Sanders has this whole Bernie or bust movement, and I think this speech kind of addressed that movement and is going to shake up that movement a bit. Which I think is an interesting kind of shift in what the conversation is going to be moving forward, because there definitely is a big group, especially of young people, that are very strongly Bernie or bust, and Bernie has never really addressed that group directly, but I think tonight was the first time that he did. So that's I don't really have an opinion. That's just my thought right now, and I think it's interesting and different.
Thanks for your call. We appreciate it. And you're right. I think he did not, or rather he did. So there are a lot of people who are Bernie or bust, not just young people. I know a lot of old people who are straight out Bernie or bust. They're probably pissed off right now. And I get it. But Bernie has not come and asked you to vote for Hillary Clinton. He said that he, as an individual, he is going to help beat Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, folks. That's the right thing for him to do as an individual. If if Bernie Sanders comes to you and says, I expect all of my supporters to vote for Hillary Clinton, then that's something different. He did not say that. He expressly made it clear that he as an individual is going to do his part to help beat Donald Trump, not because he likes Hillary Clinton, not because he even supports Hillary Clinton, not because he endorses Hillary Clinton, but because Donald Trump is Donald Trump is as bad as he needs to be to make people who would never vote for Hillary Clinton vote for Hillary Clinton to make sure he never gets in office. Now, for the rest of you, he hasn't asked you to vote for Hillary Clinton. Go ahead and vote for Jill Stein. Fine. Some of you might even vote for Gary Johnson. Fine. He didn't ask you to, but he's saying for him, it's more important to him to do two things: keep the revolution moving, for those who are going to keep moving with the revolution, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot of people who do that, and to make sure that Donald Trump never gets steps foot in the White House. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, my name's Diane. I'm in Connecticut.
Hi,
and
Diane.
I agree with you. Hi, I agree with you. I think what he did was the opposite of conceding. I think it was very, very savvy what he did. First of all, he made this really impassioned case for so many issues, you know, sympathetic to your average liberal voter. And he makes this impassioned plea that's so, you know, mainstream and basic about, you know, human rights in America. And it sounds like he's taking those to the convention, and it felt like an or else to me. That's kind of how I read it. Like, look, and he sort of mandated, he kind of went down a checklist, including universal health care and free education, college education. So it felt like, whoa, is this a mandate? Is he taking these issues to the convention? Because it was like a demand. It felt like a demand to me. So I thought that was interesting, and I thought maybe this means, I don't know what his options would be as for either running himself independently somehow or endorsing it's, you know, Jill Stein. And that may be where this is headed.
Sounds good. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a force. Thanks for the call. It's a force, right? He's going in strong. He did not concede. He's going in strong. Hang on a second. So yeah, I want some. So there's apparently some Hillary Clinton in our chat room supporters. Feel free to call in. I want everyone to call in 857-600-0518. Because I want to see this. This takes the joy. This takes the joy out of victory, man. I'm telling you. I'm sorry. I'm showing y'all how petty I am. This snatches the joy right out of all of the Hillary Clinton supporters who've been waiting on seeing bow down Bernie, right? They've been waiting to see Bernie grovel before the feet of Queen Hillary. And what Bernie Sanders is saying, child, please wait on it. What he's saying is, if you do the right thing, I might help you. I'm certainly going to fight back against Donald Trump, but I'm maintaining and I'm going to grow and I'm going to keep this organized. I'm going to get this revolution moving even further. We're going to develop it. We're going to make it a force. Do you guys realize, and I'm going to take this next call, but I can't keep my opinion to myself anymore. Here's the deal. This separates the progressive movement from the Democratic Party without taking it, without trying to start a third, fourth, fifth, sixth party. It says here is a movement, a political action movement, and we have specific goals, and we are organized, and we have money behind us, and we're going after these goals that progressives have been talking about for a long time. Now, which of you two parties are going to actually implement these goals? we'll primary you. If you don't, we will raise money for another candidate. If you do, we'll raise money for you. This means that if Donald Trump wins, Bernie Sanders' progressive movement can put pressure on Republicans, not because he's this great person by himself, but because he has the force of a few million people behind him. I wonder if people realize the true power of a progressive movement that is separate and stands alone without the need of the Democratic Party. We can then hold both parties feet to the fire. We can help change the state legislature in Georgia. For Christ's sake, we can help flip the governor's seat in Wisconsin, because we would have a progressive movement that's not dependent on nor cowers before the Democratic Party, but one that the Democratic Party now has to turn to and say, we need your support. Oh my God. The question is, how well will they execute this? It's all in the execution. But, Bernie has a good way of motivating the people. Let's see if he keeps it up. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, Benjamin. This is Lee from Ohio.
Lee, how's it going, man? What's on your mind?
Doing well, my friend. I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've said. You've been a great motivation. Bernie Sanders' speech tonight, absolutely amazing. And because of people like you, Cenk Uygur, Bernie Sanders, as of tonight, and I put everything and started getting everything started. Sorry, I'm rambling here.
Oh, no problem. Go for it.
Just after the speech, so incredibly excited. And I'm going to go ahead and put all my excuses aside and finally dedicate myself to the progressive movement, running for state legislature, and hopefully plenty of...
I knew that's where you were going. I could tell. I could listen. That's a great thing. What's your name? Again, your full name, if you want to give it.
Oh, by all means, Lee Weiser.
Lee Weiser. And what state are you running in?
I'm in Ohio.
In Ohio.
I have to get everything set up first, so it's just as of this moment.
It's a thought right now.
I wanted to thank you.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Listen, let's hear more about your platform when we get a chance. Connect with our Twitter community, connect with our online community, so we can check you out. And when you get it rolling in earnest, we'd love to have you back on the air and tell us about your platform.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Hey,
keep up the great work, my friend.
Hey, thanks a lot. Good luck with everything you're doing. 857-600-0518 is the number to call if you have to say something, if you want to say something about Bernie Sanders' speech. Again, I don't see it as a loss. I see a lot of people, man. I see a lot of people moaning on Twitter. I want some of you guys to call in because I want to see what you say. I want to see what you think. I want to hear you vocalize why you feel that this is a cop-out, when indeed it gives you the biggest and the strongest opportunity. See, I think this is the difference. I noticed the difference in the flavor and character of Bernie Sanders supporters along this line. Some people were Bernie Sanders supporters so fervently because they hated Hillary Clinton so much. And that group of people are probably extremely pissed off right now. Then you have the rest of us who are Bernie Sanders supporters because we believed in the progressive movement. And those of us who believe in the progressive movement, we see how the progressive movement can continue and be even stronger because of what Bernie Sanders did tonight. And I want to just give myself an applause, clap, a round of applause for calling it. Didn't I tell you? I told you guys Tuesday. Go back to my show on Tuesday. It was just like a boom. It just dropped in my head. I'm like, wait a minute. He can do so much more if he doesn't surrender, if he doesn't turn over his list and his fundraising capacity, and he keeps the momentum without dropping a beat and keeps going. He may not get rallies with 20,000 people in them anymore, but he'll get 2,000 people who will go and knock on doors in that same city for a particular issue. That 2,000 people knocking on doors is far more effective than 20,000 people in a rally who don't go out and knock on doors. 857-600-0518. Let me read some reactions that I'm getting on Twitter about it. Jex I can't pronounce this one. Jexamineria. Her hashtag. Anyway. One reaction on Twitter is, yes, we're moving forward to bigger and better things. Hashtag our revolution. Let's see another one. Alan on Twitter said, Dems now have to compete against a grassroots insurgent guerrilla movements that's taking their party members. Let's see the rest of it. It's a two-part tweet. Okay. Anyway, so basically he's saying Dems are now have to compete against a grassroots insurgent guerrilla movement. Yeah, because here's the thing, right? It's so funny when people say Bernie needs to sign up with the Green Party. He needs to run with the Green Party. And then they say because if he runs with the Democratic Party, then he's going to lose his power. But if he runs with the Green Party, somehow that's going to make him pure or more powerful and pure. But now Bernie Sanders can quite literally step back and say, this is a movement. Let's look at all of us. Which candidate is going to do the right thing for our movement? If it's the Green Party, then we throw our weight behind the Green Party. You see, I told you we are free agents now. If it's the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party actually does something and a candidate actually represents the best values out of the candidates running, then we'll throw our weight behind that candidate. If there's a Republican, matter of fact, Greg, what is Greg's last name from like North Carolina? T. Greg Doucette. Shout out to T. Greg Doucette on Twitter at Greg_Doucette. Reading his platform on criminal justice reform, he's a Republican in Durham, North Carolina. But I would throw my vote behind someone like him because of where he stands on criminal justice reform, where he stands on Black Lives Matter and some of the key things that he stands for. He may be a Republican, but on issues that are most important to me, he's progressive. So being free agents from a political system says that we have the right to throw our political weight behind whichever candidate is going to bring a progressive platform. And the candidates that don't, we have the right to primary them because we don't have loyalty to the Green Party, to the Libertarian Party, the Democratic Party, or the Republican National Committee. None of the above. If you're upset about it, please call in. I want to talk to you. Maybe you have a different way of seeing it. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question?
Yes, good evening. My name is Priscilla. I'm calling from Northern Virginia.
North Virginia. How's it going? What's on your mind, Priscilla?
Okay, I'm on the air.
Yes, you're live on the air. What's on your mind?
Well, I think his speech was great. I think, he's a very savvy politician with 30 years of experience that we don't have. And he has been able to survive in a democratic context where everybody didn't pay much attention to him. Mm-hmm. And he knows how to navigate through these waters, something that maybe many of us don't. And even though I'm Bernie or bust, I'm anti-Hillary and I am a progressive, I think he has to do that right now because he's doing two things. He's keeping the revolution alive and he's trying to take over the Democratic Party. But in order to do that, he has to work with Hillary Clinton. Whenever one of these people come into power, whether it's Obama or Hillary or whoever was before them, they take control of the Democratic Party. Yep. So what he's doing is allowing her to take total control over the Democratic Party. And to do that, he cannot just go and say, I'm totally against you. He didn't endorse her, and he didn't drop out either. He's keeping it safe. Also, there are three things going on at the same time. We're waiting for the FBI result of the investigation if it ever comes out. We're waiting for the California votes to be counted.
Right.
And I have the feeling, a very strong feeling, that Trump is not going to make it to the convention. That he's going to either go independent. But I feel that GOP is going to get rid of him.
Yep.
And Trump is boogeyman. That Hillary can use to get people to vote for her.
Yep.
If
Yep.
Trump isn't there anymore, everything changes.
Yep, it does. Priscilla, thanks so much for that call. I agree with a lot of what you said there, right? So one, the Republicans would be foolish to keep Donald Trump at the front of their ticket. The Republicans would be insane to do so. If you saw his unfavorability ratings, he has like a 52% unfavorable rating with white non-college men. White men who didn't go to college. He has a 52% negative rating. Like, everyone thinks that's his key demographic, which it's not. It's really those white men who went to college who make about 70 or 80. It's the Joe the plumber crowd. It's that independent contractor crowd that is the real audience for Donald Trump, right? So even me quoting that statistic plays into the narrative that poor white men are the people who love Donald Trump, when that's not the case according to statistics. The median income of his supporter is $70,000. That's that independent contractor. Ratings are off the chart. Like 96% of African Americans disapprove, 89% of Hispanics disapprove, 52% of white men who didn't go to college disapprove. Republicans would be insane to keep him at the top of their ticket. Let's see if they're smarter than what we think they are. And if that happens, then Hillary Clinton will be running against somebody who knows who, right? At this point, it would be a huge contested convention like we've never seen in our lifetime. Who knows who they would pull? But that would mean Hillary Clinton would be running against somebody who probably could beat her, and she wouldn't have a boogeyman anymore. And then there's a whole lot of other things going on. So he's shifting gears. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, this is Alan. I think you just read my tweet on the air.
Oh, yeah, Alan. Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, been listening for a bit. Thanks for what you're doing. Just want to expound a little bit on my stuff. Sorry for the Twitter feed. I did it all wrong. But what I basically was getting at was that I think Sanders' speech is probably the scariest thing that the establishment of the Democratic Party has ever heard. And the reason is because I think most candidates at this point will most candidates like Sanders who have at this point are not likely not to win the primary are just going to, I'm just going to kind of fold into kind of what the Democratic Party is doing.
Mhm.
But the reason I mentioned the whole grassroots insurgent guerrilla movement that's now taking their party members, I think it's really huge for them because now they're like, we can't just run the show anymore. We have these other folks now who are really going to pull the Democratic Party left, and because they are, we can't just do the same thing anymore. And if Sanders is right, then and the political revolution really is occurring, then you have a lot of folks who are going to be bugging the Democratic Party and Clinton for a long time. Who are going to so her issue now is not just fighting against Republicans, which again might not be concerning too, but I think the fight against Trump, to be honest with you, is not quite that hard in the sense of the type of rhetoric and the type of political stuff that you need to just kind of go against them with. I think the harder fight for her is going to be okay, how am I going to convince these really, in her mind, true lefties? How do I convince them to kind of come center while these folks are trying to pull me left? So I think that's why it's going to be really tough in the next 4 to 8 years for the Democratic Party to really kind of maintain the script, as it were.
Yep. I agree with you 100%. I think that's a great observation. That's why I wanted to read the tweet on the air. So there are some Democrats who need to be primaried. I will clap myself. There are some Democrats who need to be primaried, and now we have a political movement that is organized on a national level that we can say, here is a candidate that needs to be primary. Here's a politician who needs to be primaried. Here's a new voice who's a progressive. Boom, let's get him in office or get her in office or however let's get them into office, right? So we have that ability now. We've taken, without destroying the Democratic Party, we've made the Democratic Party beholden to us. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen just because he said it. It doesn't happen just because he made the speech. It happens if millions of people stay organized, continue to canvass, continue to donate, continue to knock on doors, continue to show up to meetings, continue to write letters, and continue to put pressure on the people who are in office so that while they remain in office, they don't continue to undermine our best efforts while they're in office, right? I mean, imagine if 100,000 people called one particular congressman every day for a week, not for a week, but for 6 months on a particular issue. Right. And then if we split, nobody would ever get through. Let's break it down to 10,000 people calling 10 different congressmen and senators and then spread it out. I mean, just see it spread. Right. See how far it can go and how much pressure you could put on them. And to hell with this idea that if we call you on the carpet and if we call you and say we disagree with you, or if we write articles about you, or we write something on Twitter, that's harassment. No. I'm sorry. If you benefit from the public limelight, if you benefit from taxpayer dollars, if you benefit from the votes of the public, you must be held accountable to the voices in the public. It's not harassment. Now, if they call you and threaten you, that's something else. But if we call you and tell you that you are 100% wrong, that you are doing this wrong, you are not representing us right, you are not a progressive, and if you don't change this, we are going to primary you, I'm sorry, that's not harassment, that's politics. And you should find a new profession if you can't handle it. 857-600-0518 caller. You're live on the air. Probably you'll be the last one I'll take a call on this particular topic because we got to talk about Guccifer. What's on your mind? What's your name? Coming in, no question.
George from Colorado.
George, what's on your mind, man?
Well, honestly, I just think that Bernie Sanders is biding his time. I think he's a genius. I think that he knows that the same guy who stopped election fraud in Ohio for Obama in 2012 is currently right now launching an investigation on the exit poll gate that Lee Camp has been talking about on Rebecca's night every chance he gets. And I think with the FBI investigation and everything else looming out there, he doesn't really have to go out and throw a bunch of punches. He just has to find a good reason to stay in the race. Progressive platform is the best reason to stay in the race as of right now, and she's just going to dissolve out from under him, and the DNC is going to have to take him.
Hey, if that's how it plays out, it's a brilliant move, right? Notwithstanding that the possibility that there are still some questions. Thanks for the call, by the way. There's still some questions that have not been answered. Speaking of, I've been wanting to talk about this one all day, but I couldn't even get to Twitter to talk about this one. Guccifer, like Lucifer. Guccifer hacker, one-man hacking machine. So this week, the DNC admitted that their servers had been hacked, their email client servers had been hacked, and it appears that what was targeted was opposition research on Donald Trump. The Democratic National Committee tried to make it seem as though it was a effort by Russia. A national effort, like this was a major effort from Russia and the Putin administration and his intelligence agencies. So they try to make it seem as though it was a huge operation under which many people and many organizations would have been victimized by this high level of hacking. Apparently, Guccifer didn't like the sound of that because he made it clear on his website that this was something he was able to do on his own. And to prove it, he released some documents. And in the midst of releasing all the documents that outlined the opposition research for Donald Trump, he also released financial documents showing contributions from people like Morgan Freeman, just showing their top level donors of $1 million to the DNC, their spreadsheet. And of course, all of this, for integrity, I have to say all of this is alleged. However, when confronted with questions by the Young Turks political reporter Jordan Chariton of whether or not this was these were actual documents, instead of saying a firm yes or a firm no, the DNC deflected. And in this kind of scenario, when you deflect, that essentially tells us that these are real documents. So I want to bring up on the screen here. So in the midst of these being, alleged documents, we feel like they're real documents because the DNC did not deny the authenticity of the documents. If you dug into some of the documentation, you would see the strategy of the DNC all the way back in May of 2015. I'm looking something up. So May of 2015, and I'm going to bring it on your screen here. So May 26, 2015, this is a memo that was sent to the Democratic National Committee. And the memo says, please find a suggested strategy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our goals and our strategy. Number one, highlight when the GOP candidates so this is their opposition strategy against the GOP. Highlight when the GOP candidates are outside of the mainstream on key issues. Number two, damage Republican presidential candidates' credibility. Three, use specific hits to muddy the waters around ethics, transparency, and campaign finance attacks on HRC. That number three is the big one. Now, this is a document that Guccifer the hacker got from the DNC, allegedly got from the DNC. When confronted about the authenticity of this document, let me put it back on me, on the authenticity of this document, the DNC did not confirm nor deny. They deflected. So in the absence of a firm yes or a firm no, we're going to continue to explore the substance of these letters, of this memo. And the substance of this memo suggests that there was a strategy put in place in May of clearly states that there was a strategy placed in May of 2015 that outlined how the DNC was going to assist Hillary Clinton in gaining a victory. Now, Bernie Sanders did not launch his campaign, and I'm trying to find the date. He launched his campaign in April of 2015. Yeah, I'm here counting months of mine. Right. So in April, he launched his campaign. But in May, the DNC received a memo. And there is a question of where this memo came from. Right. It's not clearly documented where this memo came from. But it shows that the DNC had in their records a strategy to help Hillary Clinton win the general election before the primaries even kicked off in earnest. I'm putting it back on your screen. So before the primaries even began in earnest, Bernie Sanders had just declared in April that he was kicking off his campaign to run for president. Martin O'Malley, I don't know if Martin O'Malley had declared yet or not, but he was in the race. And the DNC is making plans on how they're going to help Hillary Clinton win. Now, forget about the strategy of muddying the water, right? We'll discuss that in a minute. We'll discuss the muddying water in a minute. But just the fact that their plans and their eyes and their intentions, the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, their intentions were set on helping Hillary Clinton win while or even before the primary began. So much for that unbiased, right? They're neutral, the neutrality that they tried to make people believe. And I want to share this. This is the tweet from Jordan Sheraton from the Young Turks, where he spoke to the DNC, and the DNC official to him on the Guccifer hack said, this is the statement from the DNC. Our experts are confident in their assessment that the Russian government hackers were the actors responsible for the breach detected in April. And we believe that today's release and the claims around it may be a part of a disinformation campaign by the Russians. We've deployed the recommended strategy, the recommended technology, so that today our systems are secure thanks to a swift response to the attack, and we will continue to monitor our systems closely. This was in response to the question, are these documents that Guccifer released authentic? Their response, oh, that's just a misinformation campaign from the Russians. We didn't ask you that. We said, is this document in particular, are all of these documents in general authentic? Oh, no, but this is a misinformation campaign by the Russians because, the Russians had a major hack attack against us and they got our documentation and now they're just trying to cover up their steps and make it seem like someone else did it. We don't care about that at this point, Debbie. We want to know, are these documents authentic? Because if they are authentic, then this document right here, the very first one that I shared, I'll share it on your screen again. This document suggests that the DNC was already planning to help Hillary Clinton before the primaries even began. All right, let's look at the second. This was the second thing that was the most interesting to me from it. Oh, look at that. I saved the document over itself. Isn't that something? I just have to read it to you. I'll pull up the second document. Actually, maybe I can pull it up here. Yes, reporter outreach. Okay, so I'll have my producer put this on the screen after the fact. All right, so in terms of muddying the waters, the second half of that same document, reporter outreach, the tactics. These are the tactics that they outlined to accomplish their goals. Working with the DNC and allied groups, we would use several different methods to land these attacks, including, number one, reporter outreach. Working through the DNC and others, we should use background briefings, prep with reporters for interviews with GOP candidates, off-the-record conversations, and opposition pitches to help pitch stories with no fingerprints and utilize reporters to drive a message. Let me read that last part again. I think you missed it. We will use off-the-record conversations and oppo pitches to help pitch stories with no fingerprints and utilize reporters to drive a message. Here's the problem with this. This is standard operating procedures, what you do against your political rival. The problem is this is the exact technique that was used against Bernie Sanders. And seeing as though the DNC was already planning this before the primaries even began good, it suggests everything that we suspected all along, that the DNC was in the tank for Hillary Clinton because of all of the loyalty in the top ranks, including the chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Now, I have to give a shout out to Alexander the Meh on Twitter, because once he saw this, opposition research pitches to help pitch stories to reporters with no fingerprints and utilize reporters to drive a message. When Alexander the Mess on Twitter saw this, he reminded everyone of this tweet from Olivia Nuzzi, where she said, maybe I would buy into the Bernie Bros narrative more if I hadn't been pitched a story about Bernie Bros by Hillary's camp. These tactics were used the entire time against Bernie Sanders and his camp. They would have been used against Martin O'Malley if Martin O'Malley lasted more than, a few months, right? But this is what Hillary Clinton's team has been doing against Bernie Sanders. This is what the DNC has been doing against Bernie Sanders. And it was outlined in May of 2015, over a year ago, before the primaries even began good. So for everyone who's crying and saying, "Oh, Bernie Sanders isn't a good Democrat," why would he be a good Democrat when the Democrats were not good to him? Why would he be a good Democrat and fall in line when the DNC has been colluding with Hillary Clinton's camp since day one, not just on strategy and tactics, but also on fundraising? Go back to the video that I did a few months ago about Hillary Fund for America, or Hillary for America, and their joint fundraising efforts with the DNC and I believe 31 state Democratic parties. And see how when the expectation was that only 1% of $30,000 raised by big donors would go to Hillary Clinton, over 60% ended up going to Hillary Clinton. Go back and take a look at that. All right, so this is all released, and apparently this is just the beginning. There's going to be a lot more turned over that has already been turned over to WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks said that they're going to turn over more in the days to come. This is an insane election season. Because to be honest with you, the only way, you have people who love Hillary Clinton no matter what, but for a lot of the rest of America, the only way they even look at Hillary Clinton for a moment is because Donald Trump is so asinine and so obscene and absurd. 857-600-0518. We'll take some calls on the Guccifer situation. What do you think about this? Do you think this is authentic? Do you think that this was does this demonstrate collusion from the beginning? Have they been colluding with Hillary Clinton all of this time? Let's get your thoughts. And I like this comment. We're talking about some of the Democrats that need to be primaried in the chat room that said we need a primary Democrats like those who voted for the trans bathroom bill in North Carolina. Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't ask me to unite blue to vote for Democrats that have been voting for things that are detrimental to my community or to the community of those for which I consider myself an ally. Right? No, there's 11 Democrats, 13, I believe it's 11 or 13 Democrats in North Carolina who need to be primaried and need to be put out. And there's examples of that, not just people who make these atrocious votes, but there are also people who sit on their seat for 30 years, 40 years and do nothing for their local. Listen, I know candidates right now who are itching for the chance to run for office and to try to do something for their district, the district for which they want to represent. And they are frozen stiff and scared of running because of an establishment Democrat who's squatting. We don't have time for politicians to squat anymore. You can't just sit on a seat and expect everyone to fall in line with you because you're a Democrat. Even if you're a black Democrat. Certain districts, you know what I'm talking about, districts in Florida, but I'll leave you alone. All right, let me take a pause here and do some thank yous for since yesterday, guys. Listen, you guys have turned up for the Benjamin Dixon Show, and I appreciate it. Since last night, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people became patrons since last night. Started off with Vanessa. Vanessa, thank you so much for your pledge. Eric, thank you for your pledge. Nicholas G, thank you for your pledge. Rebecca C, thank you for your pledge. Wayne P, thank you for your pledge. Aaron H, thank you for your pledge. Andre R, thank you for your pledge. Nathan, thank you for your pledge. Sean A, just tonight, 9:30 during the middle of the show. What's up, man? Thank you for the pledge. And Lillian R, during the show, 9:55. Thank you for the pledge. We can't do this without you. I salute you guys. Thank you so much. You can support the Benjamin Dixon Show. Also, go to www.patreon.com/the BPD Show and support the show and help us just go to the next level and do a whole lot of more things than just ranting. I do a lot of great writing. I just don't have time to. Help me get some more time to write. Some other things that I want to go. Listen, before we go tonight, I'll take some more calls. But before we go tonight, I have to talk about the dumbest tweet in the world. The most ridiculous tweet in the world, at least for this week. And then I want to talk about the surrounding conversations of whether or not we should give people hell when they do something so atrociously stupid and so atrociously offensive. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I want to tie that in also with so much going on. So much going on. Okay, here's the other news. So the CIA has reported that so far they can find no legitimate connections to Omar Mateen and the Islamic State, ISIL. Their conclusion so far, and the investigation is still going on, their conclusion so far, the evidence that they're finding is that this has more overtones of a traditional mass shooting. It looks like there was a tremendous power dynamic in play, where the shooter, because of his past relationships and his domestic abuse of his wife and his ex-wife and his current wife and some of the relationships that they've uncovered, the shooter had more of a power complex, and it was more about exerting his ability to take human life. The CIA and the FBI are stressing the fact that the investigation is not complete. They are still digging. And this is all despite his social media posts during the rampage, his post on Facebook stating that he was doing this because of ISIS. And this is despite his 911 call. Listen, when you looked at it on the surface and you looked at all of the implications around it, everything that was going on around it, it had all of the feelings that he was throwing ISIS on this so that it could amplify the effects of what he was doing. Right? As soon as you say ISIS, and you've really made an international event out of something that is already tragic, and he knew this. And the CIA is, thankfully, someone is going and doing some investigations to try to get to the bottom of it, instead of our politicians who are drawing a conclusion and running so quick to suggest that because of this shooting that we should ban Muslims. And not just ban Muslims, but ban people from countries that have a terrorist presence. And then other people who are saying, well, we're not going to ban Muslims. Let's just up our bombing on ISIS. Let's do more than what we're already doing to eradicate the terrorist threat and to eradicate radical Islam. Right. So we have candidates who, trying to outdo each other, not only draw conclusions, but run and suggest policies that are detrimental to the long-term outlook for America, detrimental to the soldiers who are going to have to go and execute all of their orders, because they're trying to one-up each other to show who can be the biggest, the baddest, and the boldest. And in the meanwhile, the CIA is like, well, it doesn't look like this had anything. Actually, let me rephrase it. It doesn't look like this had much to do with ISIS as much as it did Omar Mateen's need to assert control and power. Somebody's wise enough to do some investigations. The question is, are we going to be wise enough to actually listen to them? Not that they're right all the time, because, anyway. 857-600-0518. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question? Caller, this is you. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi.
Hi.
Am I on the air?
Yes, you are. What's your name?
Oh, okay. Hi. My name is Alicia.
Alicia, what's on your mind?
On Twitter.
Awesome. Glad to have you.
Nice to talk to you. I called in a long time ago. I just have two comments. Mm-hmm. I agree with what you said about the Muslim issue, because I am Muslim, and I think that all this fear and everything that's being portrayed on the news and everything about wanting to ban Muslims in the United States is very, it's horrific.
Yeah.
There's wonderful Muslims here in this country that love America, that support each other, that support their communities. And I think that this is creating a lot of hate and decisiveness between everybody.
Yeah.
The second comment that I wanted to talk about was just a quick comment when you were talking about the Guccifer documents.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship between Donald Trump entering the race, he talking to Bill Clinton, and the DNC already having in the documents that Donald Trump would be who Hillary Clinton would be running against, and their strategy. That is something very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to come of it, if we're going to hear more documents about it or more information, but I found that very interesting.
I do too, actually. And I said something, thanks for the call. I said something earlier this summer because a lot of people felt like Donald Trump was, quote unquote, a plant. And I said this summer, we'll know if Donald Trump was a plant based on how he runs the general election. Because if he's serious about winning the general election, then he would move back to the center, or at least back away from the asinine, ridiculous, obscenely dumb right-wing fringe of America. Right? If he really wanted to win, he would move back. And I said, if he doesn't move back and he stays to the extreme right, then he doesn't want to win. And you have to ask yourself at that point, ask yourself the question at that point, why the hell is he running then? And for a fleeting moment, when the primary was over, it looked as though Donald Trump was going to move back to the center. And then all of a sudden, like clockwork, his true right wing, or whatever this is that he's pretending to be or really is, he went right back to what he's been doing in the entire primaries. And his polling has plummeted as a result. He does not want to win. You have to ask yourself the question, why is he running then? We'll see. Still time for him to move back to the center. Because if he moves back to the center and becomes the more moderate Donald Trump than this Republican bastardized version of him. I mean, he's a bastard anyway, but this is even worse version of him. If he moves back to the more moderate Donald Trump, he could legitimately win. We could be faced with the president Donald Trump, but he's not doing that. He's breaking conventional wisdom. The conventional wisdom needed to be broken in the primaries because of who the Republican Party has become, right? It worked in the primaries. It will not work in the general election. The polling is starting to bear that out. He's plummeting. And so if he's going to maintain this political suicidal course, you have to ask yourself the reason why. Why are we doing this, Donald Trump? And why are you running in the first place? Because you're not going to win. And in the meantime, in the midst of all this, in the midst of Donald Trump destroying the Republican Party, in the midst of him just making them, we could be taking over the House, we could be taking over the Senate. In the midst of all this, we could be doing so much for progressivism, and we're stuck with, girl, I guess I'm with her, Hillary Clinton. All right, 857-600-0518. Couple other things I want to hit on. The obscenity and I'm going to make this one up, asininity of John McCain today. John McCain stated that President Obama is directly responsible for the mass shooting in Orlando, Florida, because of the rise of the Islamic State group and the president's on the president's watch. But he, according to the Associated Press, he later issued a statement saying that he misspoke. Well, here's your actual statement. This is the statement. Barack Obama is directly responsible for it because when he pulled out of Iraq, Al-Qaeda went to Syria, became ISIS, and ISIS is what is today thanks to Barack Obama's failures, utter failures, by pulling everybody out of Iraq. A visibly angry McCain said as the Senate debated a spending bill, according to the Associated Press. I don't know where you misspoke, Senator. I mean, did you misspeak or did you change your mind about it because now the CIA has come out and said that the shooting in Orlando probably had less to do with ISIS and more to do with the egomaniacal power hungriness of this guy? I think Senator McCain would have left that standing so long as we could tie the shooting in Orlando to ISIS. But now that we can't tie the shooting in Orlando to ISIS, now he backtracks and said, I misspoke. This is what happens when you are so vested and so committed to pushing a narrative that you view everything in the world through the lens of that narrative. The Republican Party has been hell-bent on blaming the creation of ISIS on President Obama so that they can absolve them and George W. Bush and Dick Cheney from breaking the Middle East in the first place more than it's been broken for all these generations. Right? There would be no ISIS that formed out of Al-Qaeda leaving Iraq, going into Syria, if not for the fact that we utterly destroyed the entire infrastructure, the military, everything of Iraq, completely incapable of installing a democracy that could maintain the balance. We broke it. Therefore, if we're going to credit the creation of ISIS to anybody, it has to go back to George W. Bush. But because they are hell-bent on changing and whitewashing history, changing the narrative that they are stuck with and committed to is that President Obama, by pulling the troops out of Iraq, is responsible for the creation of ISIS. And when you are that dedicated to a narrative, you end up saying something extremely ignorant, like John McCain said today, that Barack Obama is directly responsible for the shooting in Orlando because when he pulled everyone out of Iraq, Al-Qaeda went to Syria, became ISIS, and ISIS is what it is today, thanks to Barack Obama's failures. Shortly thereafter, the CIA clarified that this is probably not a case of ISIS radicalization. And so John McCain promptly corrects himself and said, "I did not mean to imply that the president was personally responsible. I was referring to President Obama's national security decision, not the president himself." McCain. You didn't even clarify good. You did not even read the CIA briefing that came out in between the time you said the first dumb thing and the time you said the second dumb thing. You need to get a new staffer, get some new staff and put you up on game, Senator. Speaking of being committed to narratives, so committed to narratives that you say something stupid in hopes of forwarding that narrative at all cost, I present to you, let's see if I got, do I have any music for that? Yeah, I have a little. Let me play this. This might be super loud. Let me turn it down. Hang on. I'm going to try something. I don't have any official music, but I have to present to you the dumbest tweet of the year. All right. Yeah, okay. The dumbest tweet of the year. I'll get some real music for it. I'm just screwing around here. Listen, I'm not into public shaming, not for real, but this one, you earned this one. This is a series of tweets from Brienne of Snarth, formerly known as film_ESQ. I have to set it up. Last night we talked about the tragedy, the very real tragedy of the 2-year-old boy. His last name was Graves. His father's name is Matt. His mother's name is Melissa. I believe his name was Lane Graves. It came back to me. The 2-year-old boy, Lane Graves, who was drowned, attacked, bitten by an alligator, drug into the pond, the swamp, the lake, and drowned. They recovered the body. And the boy, thankfully, and again, it seems a little morbid, but the parents were thankful for this as well. The boy had not been eaten. His body was intact. He drowned. He did die, but he had not been eaten. There were just puncture wounds in his legs from where in his body where the alligator bit him and drug him under. So in the midst of this very real tragedy, you get this. I'm so finished with white men's entitlement lately that I'm really not sad about a 2-year-old being eaten by an alligator because his daddy ignored signs. The tweet continues. You really think that there are no effing consequences to anything? A goddamn sign told you to stay out of the water in Florida? F a sign. The tweets continue. I'm sad for that kid's other family members to have to pretend not to hate that dad and try to act like it wasn't his damn fault. I present to you the world's dumbest, most offensive, most asinine and ridiculous tweet, brought to you in part by people so committed to a narrative that they are willing to twist and morph anything and warp everything into being about the narrative that is their bread and butter. Every now and then you have to take a step back and say, I can view the entire world through the lens of white privilege, but everything that happens is not necessarily something that can be attributed to white privilege. I get it. White privilege carried you guys through the primary season. This narrative of white male privilege helped you beat back against the progressive movement of Bernie Sanders. I get it. Damn it, you get an applause because you guys were so effective at pushing back against Bernie Sanders with the white male privilege narrative. But damn it, at some point you have to be smart enough to slow your ass down and realize that a 2-year-old baby getting killed by an alligator is not an indication or an example of white male privilege. But if you had not been so committed to forwarding that narrative at any expense, you could have taken a step back and realized the human tragedy. You could have taken a step back and realized this is something that should not be politicized, even if I can politicize it. You should take a step back and realize that Matt and Melissa Graves now have to bury their 2-year-old son, and you're busy out here making a national scene with your modest following, with all of the people who amplify your voice, because you want to forward the narrative of white male privilege and how atrocious it is and how difficult it is to exist in a world where white men have so much privilege. Oh, however will you survive? Yes, there's such thing as white privilege, but yes, there's also such thing as dumb privilege. And the dumb privilege that people get to be on Twitter and sound off about anything and everything sometimes costs you your ass. And you have done this to yourself, film as ESQ, because that was not only the dumbest tweet of the day, that was the most offensive tweet I have ever read in regard to a tragic situation that should not be mocked about, that should not be politicized, that everyone should just take a step back and say, damn, life is effed up sometimes. And now these parents have to bury their child. And while the parents have to bury their child, the rest of us have to sit back and endure and be harassed by your ignorance. You lose. You get nothing.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
We'll see you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.